If nothing else, this episode of Smoke tells you that the ability to interview is a skill set that you all should have. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Apologies in advance if my voice sounds a little different. Got a bit of a head cold, so I'm trying to work around it, but thank you for coming in. Let's talk about Smoke episode 3 called Weird Milk. As I thought, Michelle's on to Dave immediately. She's like, nope, there's only one person left. And I think the clue of that Engelbert gave her at the party about Dave always not showing up at these things sort of is what helped her realize what path she had to take and who was the person. So she is dead on for David and trying to just figure out all the things and clues she has before she sort of makes a case. But she also still has to play nice with him. So she's doing this weird back and forth. I believe her. She's not letting on to Dave that she is off, but also Dave doesn't have the emotional ability to sort of tell if she's not being truthful or honest, and he doesn't know her well enough to know what her tells are to say when she's being fake or putting on a fake front for her. So it's going to be interesting to see how this cat and mouse goes for the rest of the show. So episode 3 picks up with Michelle at a therapy session because she has to get clearance for after shooting Arch, and it's a pretty intense therapy session because the therapist is like, "I'm calling you on your BS." Michelle's throwing the BS all over, trying to make her feel like, "I got this. It's nothing. It's a routine shooting, not a big deal. I'm fine. I was in war. I was in combat. This me shooting a dude in the kneecap who was coming at me with an assault rifle, not a big deal." She feels invincible, and she's like, no one can hurt her anymore, and the only person that can hurt her is herself. And we see a lot of scenes of her childhood trauma situation with her getting locked in the closet comes back quite a bit in this episode. But for her, police work, doing this, diving in as much as she is, this is all she knows how to do. So anything that is not work related, relationships, we've seen it, how she sabotaged the Burke thing, even though it was a toxic relationship to begin with. But anything she does in life, she burns it down. But this, she knows how to do well. Doctor gives her the clearance. She calls Dave immediately to just let him know that she's off the bench. And Dave's like, oh, all right, well, cool. I didn't realize you'd be off the bench so fast. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to be looking into more of the DNC arsonist. And Dave kind of pauses and is like, well, wait, what do you have? Like, do you know something? She's like, no, I got some stuff, She is playing it off to him perfectly that, like, yeah, I figured out some things, I'm going to look into it, but he can't let on that it bothers him. But then we see her go to a map with post-its and whatever, and she's fully on to Dave. Like, she has Dave's whereabouts, like the timing of when he is not out on clock, when he's out, missed shifts, his logs, his fire logs, all of that stuff. She's tracking it all. So she is like now a dog on a bone, and she's not going to let this go. Meanwhile, Emmett is having a hard time sort of disconnecting from his dad who's about to go away. He's giving him the riot act and letting him have it, let him feel the guilt trip of it all. While that's happening at the house that Emmett's going to be going to, Dave is trying to clean up Emmett's room. But Ashley comes in and is like, would you want your dad to be in your room while you're cleaning up? And Dave is basically saying, like, hey, look, I'm just trying to do everything possible to make him feel as welcome and at home when he gets here. I want him to feel the best that he can be. But Ashley's like, just go do your book, because it all comes off as inauthentic. Like, Dave's big thing is because he doesn't have an emotional core to sort of connect to his wife, his stepson, his partner, that all of it feels like just a surface level, like almost like a psychopath, which he is. I know what, take that back. I don't want to get into diagnosing people, but it is very surface level emotions that he's giving, and so people can sort of tell and suss out, you're not giving me the true emotion. So Ash is like, just get out of the room. I'll clean up from here. Just go. Michelle is going down her list of folks to ask about fires and incendiary devices and seeing if, hey, did you find any other of these? She's tracking the cigarettes for all these fires that exist. And she's doing it all sort of off the grid so that Dave doesn't find out. Because as we have seen with the Arch and Scotty piece, they're a tight knit community. So she's trying to like scratch off people that don't really have a connection to Dave. She's sort of doing this off the books. But she's running into dead end after dead end. So she eventually gets to a point where she's trying to find the cigarette butt and to see like, hey, they probably just threw it out at somewhere. And she gets to a stop sign and she throws a quarter out. She's like, oh, this is probably, if I had the affectation to smoke and then just throw it out, this is what I would do traveling along this road. So she stops at every stop sign, almost every other quarter of a mile, and just does that to a quarter, to a point where she starts getting frustrated and like, I'm not going to figure it out. But this girl is determined, y'all. Like one character trait that you can say about Michelle, even though, and I'll get on this in a second, she's a flawed character. There is a dog on a bone mentality. She's not going to let this go. But she eventually finds in one of the grassy folds a cigarette that matches the cigarette that was at the DNC store. And so she grabs it with her gloves. She puts gloves on, bags it, and takes it on. Now, I want to pause here for a moment because I had a viewer who was like, it was hard to get into the show because of the characters. She couldn't connect to any of the characters. I get that. All of these characters are broken. There's a flaw to every of them. None of them are perfect. This includes Freddie and Dave, especially, but this includes Michelle as well. Her issues can be troubling and it can be hard to sort of find a true protagonist. Now, obviously, it is Michelle in this, but um, for me, that is some of the best drama. That's some of the best meat is when you sort of have these characters that exist in this gray area. That's when you sort of get the best television. But I completely can understand that it is hard to find a moral compass that is positive with any of the characters that exist on this show. So Michelle takes that cigarette butt and she tries to get it examined in the lab, but no place is really willing to touch it because it's not a part of an active case that's attached to an actual fire. She's sort of kind of doing this on the whim. And so Burke, her side piece, whatever, captain, says, hey, if you want me to push this through, come have a drink with me. And she's like, I don't have time for that right now. It's clear that he's still trying to grossly use his power dynamic. Back at the fast food spot, Freddie is getting harassed sort of put down by his coworker, Lee, about going for the managerial position. Freddie is dressed in his white button up, and he's trying to do extra work. He's scraping the fryer or whatnot, but he's doing it in the eye of the camera. So the camera, he thinks that, hey, if I do this, if I put on a good show, if I put on a good work, the folks that are looking on at the camera will notice how good of a worker I am and give me that managerial position. While Lee's kind of just like, that ain't how it works. Ain't nobody looking at you. You ain't gonna be nothing. This manager stuff ain't happening for you. Like he is actively putting him down to the point where Freddie just keeps scraping, and he ends up setting the fryer on fire, like a blaze steps up. Now, the second that happens, last time Freddie saw a fire, he was in joy heaven. Felt like the stars, the twinkle, twinkle little stars were happening for him. That happens to here again. He gets in a daze, and Lee is like, what are you doing? Like, move. So he has to push Freddie out the way and take out and put the fire out. And then he sort of gives Freddie some more crap about it. In that moment, though, Freddie kind of just froze and like, fire. I do love fire. The old Beavis and Butthead, fire. Yeah, yeah. That's what happens to him, but in just a much more like joy rushing over his body situation. We then follow Dave, who is writing. He gets back to writing, and Dave. What I've noticed in this show is that Dave's writing is both this catharsis to figure out what he's going to do next in his fires, and also what Milk Jug arsonist is doing and how to figure out that situation. So when we see him typing various scenarios of the milk jug arsonist going to a store to get milk jugs and then blowing someone up. It's actually kind of played for laughs a little bit, where the milk jug arsonist sees the happy family and just balls up his fist. He plays it 3 times in a row. It's important to note that he plays it and he keeps trying to have the women characters talk, and he's failing at it. He's failing miserably because, again, what we've learned, one, he can't write female characters, but the reason he can't write the female characters is because he has the lack of having an emotional connection to talk to anybody. So he can write about himself, the guys will be fine, but he has no center at all to discuss about what a woman can do. But he keeps going on. He does about 3 variations of this, and what he gets to is that the milk jug person probably has these bags, these cartons in a shopping bag. So that clicks for him, like, oh wait, that might be what's happening with the real life milk jug arsonist. So he goes to check evidence and he calls Michelle in. Michelle comes in, he shows him what he's got. He's like, look, I think the milk jug arsonist is using these containers, and he flips them over like the milk jugs they have. They have like a black residue on them. It's like, I think they're using a shopping bag. He's like, okay. Michelle's like, cool. And he's like, well, what's the color of it? And comes down to that it's black. Not because it's burnt and everything's going to look black, but the actual color was looked into evidence by, and they said that it was, in fact, originally black. Which only 2 stores in the entire area have black shopping bags. So they've now narrowed it down to he's getting these milk jugs and these shopping bags from at least 2 grocery stores. Michelle, being the cop that she is like, look, let's go and put trackers on every shopping bag that gets left out, that leaves out of these 2 stores. And we will then see which one of them attaches to a person. And then when they show up at one of these crime scenes, we'll know who it is. She goes to Englehart, the chief, say, this is what we should do. And Englehart takes the piss out of her a little bit and like, yeah, we don't have the budget to do that. Like that ain't happening here. And so they have to figure out another way to figure out how they can track those bags. Freddie goes in for his interview. It's sad to see how unattached he is from being able to communicate in the real world. I think it's interesting how Dave is an arsonist. He can actually speak, but he has no emotional connection. Where on the flip side, I feel like Freddie has a ton of emotional connection. He just can't talk. He just can't speak. He can't communicate and put any of that out. But he's trying to write. He's trying to cover his stuff up. He gets into the interview room and he just bombs it. And like, mind you, this interviewer person is trying to give him, he's helping him. He's lobbing up softballs to him, and Freddie is just answering in 3-word sentences. He just cannot communicate at all. To the point where after about the 3rd time, the interviewer's like, okay, I see what this is. See what's happening here. This ain't gonna work. Fortunately, somehow Freddie thinks he did well. So we see a scene a little bit later when Lee comes to apologize to him. He's like, look, my dad used to put me down about having aspirations or putting things down, and it made me feel like crap. And now I feel like crap for doing that to you, so I wanted to apologize. Meanwhile, Freddie just keeps refreshing his phone to see if he got the email for the second round of interviews. This is at night, which the second round of interviews are happening the following day, that morning. So by all accounts, by now he would have gotten his response, but it is not yet registering, and so he keeps refreshing. It's heartbreaking to see. Granted, he's an arsonist, so remember, boo boo him. But it's heartbreaking to see him just keep refreshing that page and knowing that that's not happening for him. We see Michelle on auntie duty. She's watching her niece. I think it's Sophia. Yes. She's watching her niece, and then she starts recalling images of her being put in a fire, put in the closet in a fire with the door handles being handcuffed together, basically barricaded. And then what we find out is her mother is the person that put her there, and then just left her in that hotel room to fend by herself. She still plans to attend her mom's parole the following day, despite her brother-in-law and sisters saying, no, that's probably not the best idea. Because all of the family wants mom to be free. They feel like she's been rehabilitated. All of them but her, because she's the only one who witnessed what happened in that hotel that night. She's the only one who was sort of put in that harm and that danger. So she's the one actively is like, nah, mom ain't right. I don't care what she's saying she did in this jail for rehabilitation. She ain't right. She goes to the parole and just lets them have it. Like, nah, there's a priest, all the family's kind of like, yeah, no, let her out. And she comes in and is like, nah, she's a demon. She eats lives, she consumes souls. Don't let this woman out. Like, she gonna make it pure hell for everybody else. And then she just takes off. We then see Dave back at his book writing. When Embers Away is the name of the book, I believe. And he starts writing that, hey, I've got to come up with a new way to do my fires because he uses, I think, Moxley as the name of the character in the book, but it's referencing Michelle. Michelle is keeping an extra eye on the supermarket, so I can't do my fires there anymore. So I got to come up with a new way. And so we see a shot of a Molotov cocktail being thrown into a BMW in a random neighborhood. And then he's standing there. Well, the person is standing there with the DNC outfit on, hoodie, tan hoodie, brown, and then he sprints off once the lady sees him. Obviously, Dave's the first person on scene because, well, he was right around the corner. And then Michelle shows up. And so they're interrogating and looking at the car and investigating. Dave throws at her, like, well, did the man have a limp? Because you saw him run away. He's doing everything possible to sort of posit in uh, Michelle's head that this is their DNC person that's sort of moving location. So he can sort of just pull her off the supermarkets. She clocks it. She sees, like, because she's aware of who Dave is, but Dave doesn't know she knows who he is. She kind of is like, oh, I see what you're doing. You're trying to throw me off the scent. Got it. But the woman says, I had no clue. I couldn't tell if he was limp or not. Michelle asks if he wore gloves, which Dave clocks because she wants to know if, like, hey, is there any type of glove on the cigarette? She's like, because it might not even make sense to push for to get that cigarette DNA swabbed if he was wearing gloves. Which is like, the witness also said, I didn't see that either. He was so far away and ran. So as they're leaving, Dave points out the motive is different and maybe that there's more than one middle-aged white dude running around setting these fires. And so we can't just circulate or triangulate just around supermarkets. And Michelle's like, cool, I gotta go. We will talk about this tomorrow. She's doing this all very casually. Like, again, I would not read that she is zeroing in on Dave, and Dave is too ignorant with emotions to clock anything anyway. But then she has to go over to Sophie's birthday party. She gets there, and she's triggered a little bit by the blowing of the candles. She sees fire again. She's having all those flashbacks again. And then at the end of the night, she sort of gets roughed up by her brother-in-law. Her brother-in-law grabs her by the wrist and is kind of just like, you ain't shit for what you just did to our mom. Like, then he calls out her sister, like his wife, and like the moms, like y'all, and all y'all is crazy. All y'all ain't shit. He's clearly drunk, but still, what comes out in drinking is the truth. But he's pretty much admonishing her for her actions at the parole hearing. She gets in her car, and then all of the things of the week sort of just start playing in her head. The therapist, the stuff back and forth with Dave, all of it just starts playing over and over in her head. And so the walls of the world begin to close in around her. And that is how the episode ends. I loved it. I love this show. I love this show so much because there's so much just stuff happening. So many parallels between Freddie and Dave occurring. There's a lot of brokenness with Michelle, so she's just sort of in the same triangle with those three. I mean, those other two. It's a really well done show. I do wonder when it becomes more. I have a feeling that they're going to solve the drug piece first before Michelle turns and uses Dave. Because I think for her, she also sort of needs some of Dave's knowledge that she doesn't have on the fire side of things to get that one closed out before she can then move on to the Dave piece. And I also think it would behoove her to solve the milk jug one, have her name sort of attached so she can get a little bit more clout so that some fire folks may help her when it comes to trying to put down Dave. But all in all, Apple did it again. What did you guys think about the third episode of Smoke called Weird Milk? We'll hear your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on X at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name. That's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere the place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.